Hello guys, and welcome back to the channel. So now guys, staggering amount of debt in the midst of a staggering amount of poverty. As guys, I bring you this record-breaking $86 billion debt leaves Nigerians stunned. So Nigeria is now at a record high in debt. We have never owed this much in debt before, but then of course it is not so much the debt that is the issue, but the impact of it. So there can be two impacts that this sort of debt carries. One impact good and the other impact bad. So let's go with the good impact first. So $86 billion dollars is what we're owing now under this Buhari regime. So now if we're seeing that $86 billion dollars in railways being built all over the country, good roads, good infrastructure, life being elevated for Nigerians, and we're seeing positive impacts on the infrastructural deficit especially, but then of course on the quality of life of the people more importantly, then that of course is a justification for that level of debt. But we're not seeing any of that at all. What we are seeing is the country plummeting to the poverty capital of the world, the petroleum going up in terms of the pump price, food has gone up, the wages have stagnated, there's no quality of life within the Nigerian space, and in fact the quality of life has regressed. So this is what we see. We see a real brutal form of existence in this high debt record that the country has now attained. So again, the headline, record-breaking $86 billion debt leaves Nigerians stunned. So now let's now see how this debt is being justified by the Buhari regime. Nigeria's debt of $85.9 billion, the highest in history, has become the talking point even as the country celebrates its 60th anniversary. The pressure on the economy has caused an 8.31% increase in debt owed from the total of $79.3 billion record in March. By December 2005, Nigeria was rated as one of the most heavily indebted countries, owing $33.9 billion. Now the talk is on whether the money borrowed has helped or burdened the country. So that is the point that I was making in my opening monologue. Is it a help or a burden? I think a lot of people will tell you that it is a burden. In fact, it is factually a burden because Nigeria continues to regress. But we carry on. Abuja's debt obligation had gone down in 2006 after the country got debt relief. So you recall, of course, that this was one thing that Obasanjo did, that he cleared the country's debt and gave Yar'Adua a debt-free economy. So we pick it up from the top again. Abuja's debt obligation had gone down in 2006 after the country got debt relief. The Paris Club of Creditors wrote off 18 billion of that debt, while the country paid off the balance and became largely debt-free. However, in the years that followed, the public debt spiraled as officials argued for funding budget deficits and critical infrastructures. According to the National Bureau of Statistics, 35.89% of the total federal and state public debt is external, while domestic accounts for 65.11%. The Debt Management Office DMO reported that the increase by $6.59 billion was accounted for by the $3.36 billion budget support loan from the International Monetary Fund, new domestic borrowing to finance the revised 2020 Appropriation Act, including the issuance of sukuk and promissory notes issued to settle claims of exporters. So this is now mortgaging the future is the subtitle that we're going to now. The nation's 2020 Appropriation Act had to be revised in the face of the adverse impact of C-19 on revenues and increased expenditure needs on health and economic stimulus, amongst others, the DMO explained. In spite of DMO's reasoning, some stakeholders are concerned that Nigeria remains dependent on oil as the sole revenue generating resource for such a long time without diversification to other revenue generating sources. Former Vice President Atiku Abubakar raised the stakes when he accused the government of mortgaging the future of Nigerians and having nothing to show for amassing such debt. Nigerians' sovereignty may have been traded for foreign loans, and God forbid our inability to service those loans. The lender country would take ownership of choice infrastructures on Nigeria's soil, he said. President of the Progressive Shareholders Association of Nigeria, Boniface Okeze, says the debt stock is a cause for worry due to the government's declining revenue. Disagreeing with critics, Information and Culture Minister Lai Mohammed said the ratio of debt to GDP is one of the lowest in the world at 19% as at December 31st, 2019. Unlike in the past, when the nation borrowed to service the crass indulgence of a few fat cats, the loans being obtained by the current administration were being primarily used to finance infrastructures such as roads, railways, bridges, and power. He added that the loans also were long-term in nature, which would benefit present and future generations. President Muhammadu Buhari on September the 28th at a virtual meeting with Presidential Economic Advisory Council justified the borrowing. So this is not it's staggering, because anytime you look to the Nigerian space, you see roads that are more like potholes and rivers than roads. There's no real structure to anything. There's no electricity. The policing system is understaffed. Everything is a wreck, and yet the country continues to borrow and borrow. So where is now all this money is going to? They are saying they are building the second Niger bridge, and they are building the what is it called, the Lagos to Ibadan railway. So these are just two projects, and I don't see how those two projects are an $86 billion spend. I don't see it. Those two projects at the most will cost $1 billion, $1.5 billion, no more than $2 billion. Certainly not $86 billion dollars. So now, for fairness and balance, some of these debts would have been carry over debts from previous administrations. But of course, we know that Obasanjo left a debt-free economy for Yar'Adua. So between Yar'Adua, Goodluck Jonathan, and the now Buhari regime is this money, this 86 point something billion dollars. So the debt profile of the Goodluck Jonathan regime was about 30 to 33 billion dollars. So effectively now, what we have now had in the 5 years that Buhari has been in government is a $50 billion debt. So $50 billion has been taken now at the expense of the Nigerian people by the Buhari regime. But what impact have we seen that is worth that $50 billion that has been taken by the Malam Buhari regime? So they are borrowing this money, and they are saying they are using it as social security funds and whatnot, and they are giving it to what is she called, Sadia Farouk, and is going under that department as social welfare and whatnot. So they are borrowing money to spend on things that do not generate any money. So I don't really get the logic, but of course we know they're just borrowing it and looting it. They are taking these loans, mortgaging the future, as our people say, and then just keeping this money for themselves, as that's the okay, we're here for 8 years and we just take as much as we can, and you deal with it. If it falls, it falls, I mean, we have several countries that we have houses and legal residence in, and we just walk away. So this is just what is going on now. But the debt burden now is enough to break the back of that country. But will the back of that country be broken before Malam Buhari leaves that space is really where the question is. Remember, of course, we still have another 3 years and a bit of this man to contend with, and those 3 years is not going to stop the borrowing now. It's going to continue the borrowing. So by the time this guy leaves office, if he's going at the same speed, if he borrowed 50 billion in his first term, and let's say he borrows, let's say measure for measure, it takes another 50 billion in the second term, so he's already taken 100 billion, and we're talking dollars, by the way, not naira. He has already taken 100 billion out of the Nigerian economy. But what impact does that have? Does that borrowing have, or in terms of infrastructure or anything? Is zero effectively, or minuscule, if we're being factual in detail. The weight of the debt burden has now reached a record high now within the Nigerian space. $86 billion. So, I mean, the outcry has to start now, and a reaction to this has to be really felt, because, of course, if there's no reaction to this, remember now, to pay back this money, they're having to now squeeze even more blood out of the Nigerian person. So they have removed the so-called oil subsidy. I don't believe there's any oil subsidy in the first instance. So what they're saying is, in effect, is that they are going to increase the price of petroleum to service these debts that they have borrowed and pocketed. So they go and take all of this money, and then they squeeze blood out of you to pay for the debt that has not impacted on your life. Conversations in the comment section is going to be in excess of $100 billion. I am predicting that the Malam Buhari regime is going to take out of the Nigerian space. Come share thoughts, but before you do that, click on the red subscribe button so it turns gray. The bell button notifies you every time I drop a new video. Click on like as well, because that helps with the YouTube algorithm. Once you've done all the clickings, come join me in the comment section. Come tell me what you're making of this debt burden that Malam Buhari is placing on the Nigerian state. So I'll leave you here. Carry this conversation on with you in the comment section, but here I say peace.